Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss will take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. You set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Don McKeag Show. Merry Christmas, even though it's early, and happy holidays. We've been away for those regulars I know that have let us know they miss. We've been doing reruns. My good friend and partner Kenny had a couple of issues that he had to deal with, which are fine. And we are back, hopefully for a while, and back again to take any calls should you care to join us. This is a program where we educate, mediate, consolidate, coagulate, infuriate, infiltrate, hallucinate sometimes, because you have to in this country today, but we never, ever imitate. I say this, a quote from Martin Luther, which is lost, of course, in any of today's college or high school education because it's too Christian. And I keep reminding people who Martin Luther was. First of all, Martin Luther King, the hero of America in terms of the racial conflicts. We have a day for him, which is fine. It was a horrible time in the 60s when it came to civil rights. But the man that Martin Luther King Jr.'s father named him for was a devoted Catholic priest in Germany. I mentioned this on my radio show on WXTK Saturdays from 11 to 1, and I mention it on this show because these are the things that I'm on this show for. These are the things I hope are educational to the listeners. And I hope that listeners consist of both parties, independents included. I don't care what race and I don't care what age. I hope people listen because I do my best to confront this biased media and this thinking process which daily to me becomes more and more insane. It's not about disagreeing anymore with two sides of an argument, two sides of an argument. It's about people just plain avoiding the truth. And remember, of course, this is why this left part, and believe me, I badmouth Democrats. I was one. I keep telling people that. I was a devoted JFK Democrat. I was a Democrat for years, but I was a Reagan Democrat. And I've always looked at both men, and I've looked at what was good for the country, not good for my union or good for my business. I looked at who I thought was best capable of directing this country and keeping us safe and keeping our wonderful young people who are members of the armed services, who are members of police and fire departments, keeping them safe through legislation, not through constant raises monetary reasons to get their vote. That has not worked. We are seeing the erosion of these public servants by the same people who make sure the unions are able to gather more money, because unfortunately money speaks louder than morals. But anyway, getting back to Martin Luther, who said, cowardice asked the question, is it safe? Expediency asked the question, is it politic? Vanity asked the question, is it popular? But conscience asked the question, is it right? And there comes a time when all of us, we must look to ourselves and look to our conscience and take a position on anything that we have that's so important, not on the basis of whether it's safe or popular or politic. We must start, all of us, we must start taking the position because our conscience tells us it is right. We've had too many people saying, oh, they all do it. I've said that. Those are the worst things I've heard. I was a teacher for 12 years and I heard that. I went to meetings where they had some money left over in their kitty and they told us in the classroom, we've got to spend this money or it goes back. And that's an accepted practice in government, in the military. What a horrible, horrible thing. And they justify it by saying, well, we won't get the money next time, which is not so. It's about doing the best you can with the taxpayers' money, those hard-working people out there paying taxes, raising families, trying to buy houses, trying to pay their mortgages, trying to pay their insurance, only to have their town government, their state government, or the federal government spendthrift. They are spendthrifts. They are wasters. Very, very few. And those who try, by the way, and I've been involved in that on the Cape. I was from Weymouth. I saw the irresponsibility in Weymouth when they built 2 schools when they had paid $150,000. This is years ago. They had paid $150,000 to have a study done by, I believe it was Princeton University, and they were told, no, 2 schools is not a good answer. Didn't matter. I saw in the paper over in Wareham, I was over in Wareham on 28 having coffee one day last week. Enrollment's down, down, down. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, unfortunately. But again, I won't go off into the education, except I will, because I don't know if you saw this. The continuation of the insanity of where it should least come from are these so-called elite intellects, these brains, the ones living in ivory towers that know so much more than you and I. You know, they're so brilliant. Suffolk University is no longer going to take money from the Koch brothers. I don't know if you saw that. Now, just think about the incapability and unwillingness and idiocy of the left, who will not, refuses to connect the dots, refuses to think of the people in general, and would rather choose political correctness over doing what is right. Now remember, every single school and church in Boston, Suffolk is in Boston, there's a UMass Boston, there's MIT, Harvard, every single one of them never has paid a full property tax. Nowhere near it. And yet the city of Boston needs money all the time. So Suffolk is turning away from billionaires who aren't in the tank with the liberal establishment. They actually are not going to take money. Now, we have a liberal senator, Elizabeth Warren, who ran on a ticket, for you that are out there that have kids or grandkids in college, that was moaning and groaning about the cost of college. Rightly so, the cost of tuition. Our kids that are struggling, many of them too, with parents have worked 2 or 3 jobs for 20 years to make sure their kids would have some money to go to college. They don't pay a full income tax, property tax. They raise tuitions. They raise their salary. Elizabeth Warren, over $350,000 a year she was getting as a professor to teach 1 or 1.5 or 2 courses. And you know the length of the school year. And her hypocrisy doesn't matter. She lives in a big estate, which is fine. But she makes it off of her teaching salary. And now, of course, she's on a retainer because she'll teach again, and she'll have, like Dukakis and the rest of these politicians who've put us in the tank financially. And this is a former Democrat, remember. This is not a Republican. I am definitely apolitical. I cannot take any of them. I am so totally, at my stage of life, I am so totally disgusted and sad for the future. Never have I felt the way I do now. Never. And not one bit of outrage yet that I see over Suffolk. On the one hand, they say they're going to help kids in college. We already have quotas. I wouldn't give a nickel to my University of Massachusetts in Amherst, who changed the whole admission. And by the way, isn't it nice some colleges have eliminated admission tests, entry tests. I've said it before, 30% of the college kids today shouldn't even be there. They don't have the intellect. But they're there for 2 reasons. One, they're there because they should all get to college and they should have a chance at having a college. Yeah, but you got to study. You're supposed to learn something. No. The other reason is so that these leftist professors, like the board that's running Suffolk, they now have control over your kid. And that's gone on for generations, and that's why we have the idiocy in the courts and in the political scene in Massachusetts controlled by Democrats. And that's why I left that party. Think about it. This is not me arguing a side. This is me telling you facts. The facts shall set us free. In the Bible. The truth. They don't want any of that kind of message going to our kids. This latest shooting out in San Bernardino. 2 Muslims, you hear it? 2 Muslims, a man and a woman. They're already talking about the weapons. It's the weapons' fault. I am not a lover of guns. I don't carry a gun. But I'll tell you, I'd rather have guns in the hands of millions of our legal, law-abiding United States citizens than have these liberals start chopping away like they're doing. Colleges not having their security guards be allowed to carry a gun. Where'd that go, huh? All those innocent people killed, including one of the security guards, just to feel good, just to be politically correct. It's insanity. You have a security guard. The security guard should be armed. What's he going to say? Oh, please don't come in and rob the bank? They're insane. I got to calm down. Anyway, Kenny, you're in there all right? Imagine, though, John Kerry, after this mess, John Kerry and Obama, Democrats, I know I don't have many that'll listen for long, you suppose they're still, their biggest problem, they've said over and over, for this country is global warming. And the press hand wipes and goes right along with it, the mainstream press. when you start having colleges that get tax breaks, no longer take money that would alleviate students, if it were directed, of course, which it isn't, it goes into salaries, goes into buildings. We have it in towns. You look at these towns around here, including Plymouth, Carver. They're going to build a new elementary school. They're going to build a new fire station. They're going to do something with the police station. The tax rate is already squeezing. I drove down a road in Carver yesterday. All these signs, yes on the new school, yes on the news, all the hand-wringing, all the feel-good, all the wonderful. I'm not against schools, believe me, but I am against the way they build these palaces for a school. They don't build what we need. Yes, go on the highland. Don't go beyond it. But that's what they do because school committees love to have their name on a plaque. Sorry. It comes right down to that. They do not have the ability. Today, people in this affluent country, 2 generations, 3 generations after World War II, when people knew what a dollar was, they had coupons. They had to have gas given out in limits to gas, gasoline. They learned the value of a buck. Now they don't. When it's other people's money, they do not have the capacity or the willingness to have any kind of fiscal responsibility. You can argue with me, but facts don't show me wrong. Truth sets you free, but you don't want to be free. You don't want the facts because, like that old that movie there, what was it? A Few Good Men. With Clint Eastwood, who said they can't handle, and the people today won't handle the truth, right, Kenny? They just won't. Well, anyway, I'm driving down to North Carver, and I go by all these signs, all the feel-gooders, and of course, I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm going to be the bad guy. Just like I'm the bad guy in Plymouth when I talk about the priorities that I saw in the years I've been up here from the Cape. The road building downtown.
It's all done now.
Oh, it's done. Well, a little bit. And to their credit, they at least had for Thanksgiving. Imagine for Thanksgiving if they'd had trucks still working. I'm surprised they didn't, to be very frank with you. They should have had extra workers down there, and that's the company, I don't care who it is. That should have been part of the contract you write up. Everybody says, oh, well, you know, no. Who are the people overseeing the project in the town? Here are specifics we want done. We want these summers and the businessmen, when we have people coming from all over the world, we want those roads done. We want people working late at night. But no, they don't. They're not tough enough because it's not their money. If it was their house, if it was their business. So going down again, the liberals just never, ever put things together. They're so busy with their feelings. And, we've got to help. And I don't care about helping, huh? Well, I'll put my record up against 80% of these phonies. Yeah, they give away other people's, like Kerry. Never gave a nickel when it came out when he ran against William Weld, do you remember?
I remember.
Yeah. Weld ran against him, I guess, for senator.
Right.
Weld, yeah, he's wealthy, but he gave millions in charity. Kerry gets zip. And what's he saying? Gets away with it, along with his other lies, his other liberal, Democrat, easy to get elected lies. He said, well, he had 2 daughters in college. And here he's got millions through, of course they tried to make it look like it was Teresa Hines' money, who was the Hines, her first husband. But anyway, again, I'm digressing, but on my way down to North Carver, I see all the signs, but I also see 4 or 5 signs in windows of the buildings for rent, for lease. Businesses gone. Seidel Pharmacy, gone, and now it's got some kind of ATM or whatever, and I don't know who pays, whether we, whether we, the taxpayer, no, I don't mean Carver, but whether the government covers that. And I see 4 for sale signs on houses. Nobody can put it together. And I drive down Plymouth. You go down by what used to be Burt's.
Yep.
See those big monstrosity of houses. They're still for sale. There's still 6 or 7 on 3A.
On Warren Avenue.
And Warren Avenue.
Yes. Yes.
And why? Because they are not going to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 when they only come here 10 weeks. But those in the public employ, they don't care about that. All they care about is making sure they continue to get raises. Making sure they get raises, and the Democrats are so fiscally irresponsible, they will get raises. Plymouth will build this second school, and the teachers' union will already be getting a raise because it's all for the children. What a load of malarkey. All right, I'm back into education, and that's not where I wanted to go.
I need to take you off course
Go
for
ahead.
just a minute.
What would you like to say, Kenny?
First of all, I asked you early on, I need you to talk about when your next book signing is. I heard on the radio Saturday that you're having a book signing coming up.
Well, thank you.
Don't move the book. Don't move the book.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you got it all
okay.
set.
Yes, it's all set.
Excuse me.
So, yes. So where is the book signing going to be? And I'm going to go push a button while you're talking.
Yes. All right. Well, we've been off for a while, so we haven't said it. I am going to, and I wrote a book. It's a memoir that is selling quite well, and I am having a book signing this Saturday after my radio show. I mentioned I am on, for new listeners, I am on every Saturday, 95.1. It's hot radio, so you can get it on your computer. If you just go 95.1 Don McKeag. But this is the cover of the book. It's $15.95, and the signing will be at Meeting House Liquors, which is on Route 130 in Sandwich. I believe it's exit 7.
And what time?
And it will be from 2 to 4. So my radio show ends at 1. And the signing will be from 2 to 4. And I believe my good friend Dennis Connery, another former teacher at Rockland when I taught and coached. Dennis was a coach, wonderful, wonderful fellow. It's a wonderful store. And I believe he's also going to have wine tasting going on there. So you can come down and meet me, and if you'd like, buy a book and enjoy some of his wines.
Will you sign the books for everybody?
And I will sign. I will be there to sign them, yes.
Okay. Now, would you repeat where it is again, please?
It is Meeting House Liquors and Foods. He also has wonderful deli and sandwiches.
What town?
And it's in Sandwich, and it's on just off of Route 130, up by the Coca-Cola
Exit 2,
plant.
Off of Route 6.
No, I think it's exit 7, isn't it?
Exit 2.
Oh, is
exit
it 2?
7 is Dennis Yarmouth.
It's the Meeting House exit.
Yes,
anyway, it
it's
says
exit
Meeting
2.
House right on.
Okay. Now, also, Don, if people go to your webpage,
Yes.
as it says up on the screen right
Correct.
now, they can order the book there also.
They can order it on PayPal or Amazon, but PayPal's the easiest. And that is just donaldmckeag.com. It will bring the page right up, my modest picture. And you can go direct to the purchase. And I send them out with a little note, and thank you very much. I'm getting nice reviews, so I hope that you will avail yourself of that. You may come down just to see me, too. I'd love to meet any listeners or viewers right now. Thank you, Kenny. Getting back to what I just get so infuriated by this Suffolk University, because I also have this wonderful speech, though, like everything, not all teachers are milking the, most teachers do a great job in the classroom, and I get chastised, perhaps rightly so in some ways, but when I was a teacher, I stood up then, too. I've said it before, I'm fed up with these half days, and parents should be griping about it. They should be having their meetings after school hours like everybody else does. And I'm fed up with the whining, and it still goes on, and the same thing in colleges. Well, here is Michael Adams, a professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and he's not the stereotypical left-wing teacher that we've got out there. On the heels of a report that showed the liberal arts profession overwhelmingly supports Democrats, well, teachers do. Why? For the same reason I just told you, greed. That's why. They know the Democrats are going to build new schools, and they are going to still give raises. They're never going to crack down and hold them accountable. And that's the other thing I've said. If the results were good, they're not. They've watered down tests. They have total control. There's no oversight. Anyway, Mr. Adams, a young fellow, when first semester opened, here's a statement he made to his students. I'd like to think I would do this. And it's gone viral, by the way. You can look this up in case you're questioning. See, I deal with the truth, not feelings, and not hedging. This was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And let me see where he's... Anyway, it was printed in the town hall in late August in North Carolina, a local paper, and then it went viral. And it's been reprinted multiple times. There's people out there like us, those of you that agree with me, that know where we're going. All right. This is extraordinarily insensitive, so any liberals or any young people who, we don't want to upset anyone today, We can't do that. Kids can't handle it. How about that one? Someone dies in school. I mean, I've said this for 20 years, 30 years. Someone dies in the school, and they can't wait to close the school down, even though 95% of the kids don't know who the little girl or boy that died was. And then they can't wait to get in grief counseling. They can't let kids go through what life is. Plus, it's another day of closing the school. Sorry to be tough. It's been going on. It's out of control. But here is what this man said. Young fellow. Welcome back to class, students. I'm Mike Adams, your criminology professor. Isn't this great? Here at the UNC Wilmington. Before we get started with the course, I need to address an issue that is causing problems here at UNCW and in higher education all across the country. I'm talking about the growing minority of students who believe they have a right to be free from being offended. If we don't reverse this dangerous trend in our society, there'll be soon a majority of young people who will need to walk around in plastic bubble suits to protect them in the event that they come into contact with a dissenting viewpoint. That mentality is unworthy of an American. It's hardly worthy of a Frenchman. Let's get something straight right now. You have no right to be unoffended. You have a right to be offended with regularity. It is the price you pay for living in a free society. Used to be. Now there's only free speech in one side, the liberal side. You ever noticed? If you don't understand that you're confused and dangerously so, in part I blame your high school teachers for failing to teach you before civics, basic civics before you got your diploma. But most people today don't even know what civics is, what it means. Most of you went to the public high schools, which are a disaster, and don't tell me that offended you, because I went to a public high school. Well, he goes on, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but he said it takes hard work to become stupid enough to think the Declaration of Independence is unconstitutional. If you agree with the student who made that complaint, then you are probably an anti-religious zealot. Therefore, I'm going to ask you to do exactly 3 things and do them in the exact order that I specify. First, get out of my class. You can fill out the drop slip over at James Hall. Just tell them you don't believe in true diversity and you want to be surrounded by people who agree with your twisted interpretation of the Constitution simply because they are the kind of people who will protect you from having your beliefs challenged or your feelings hurt. Second, withdraw from the university. If you find that you are actually relieved because you will no longer be in a class where your beliefs might be challenged, then you aren't ready for college anyway. Go get a job building houses so you can work with some illegal aliens who will help you gain a better appreciation of what the country has to offer. Finally, if this doesn't work, then I would simply ask you to get the hell out of the country. The ever-growing thin-skinned minority you have joined is simply ruining life in this once great country. Please move to some place like Cuba where you can enjoy the company of communists and get excellent health care. Just hop on a leaky boat and start paddling your way towards utopia. You will not be missed. Earlier this year, Mr. Adams won a court victory against the school when he sued, asserting that he was not promoted due to his outspoken conservatism. Do you understand the hypocrisy of the liberal, of the left? They preach free speech. They preach it. Anyone that comes in here from a Muslim country, anyone that comes in here that wants to blow, they have a right to say this. But a college professor who's conservative and believes in the Founding Fathers, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that's not acceptable. Just like the money from the Koch brothers isn't acceptable up in Suffolk University. And you don't think this is a war? You don't think this is serious stuff? You don't think that when your son or daughter goes into college and has a professor up there that believes this drivel, that we don't have a right, us conservatives, and your kid, if they don't conform in their essays and in their talk in the classroom, this teacher has the power over their future by flunking them? And you don't find that conflict of interest? Let's get at these this ISIS, which is coming from, of course, the Muslim culture. Remember, I just told you, Obama, John Kerry, the biggest problem for this country, imagine with all that's going on, what we saw in France, what we've seen in this country, time after time after time, shootings, innocent people, churches, schools getting killed. These 2 idiots, I'm sorry, I've never called the president an idiot before, think that global warming, and this is all in print, MSNBC, the rest of those fanny-kissing networks. Every time I hear someone say, you know, we'll defeat or we'll contain this Islamic terrorist movement like Obama does, we'll get rid of them, the Democrats, we'll do it, you know. This is the latest batch, day after week, there's a new incident. Let's take it back. Again, this is what should be being taught to our kids in college and in high school. But it won't be because this doesn't fit the agenda. The agenda that's out there of political correctness. It's so bad, ladies and gentlemen. In 732 AD, imagine we're going from the 7th century right up to the 17th century, then up into today. 732 AD, the Muslim army that was moving on Paris was defeated and turned back at Tours, France. In 1571 AD, the Muslim army navy was defeated by the Italians and Austrians as they tried to cross the Mediterranean to attack southern Europe in the Battle of Lepanto. In 1683 AD, the Turkish Muslim army attacking Eastern Europe was finally defeated in the Battle of Vienna by German and Polish Christian armies. If these battles had not been won, we might be speaking Arabic and Christianity might be non-existent. Judaism certainly would be. Now, this is fact. Now, did you notice in all of these dates, the Muslims were attacking liberals? Do you get it, liberals? It wasn't Europe trying to be conquerors. That, of course, escapes the liberal establishment. Just like if we hadn't won World War II, if you don't think we'd be speaking German and Japanese and you'd have one, most of you wouldn't be here. And let's not forget that Hitler was an admirer of Islam and that the Mufti of Jerusalem was Hitler's guest in Berlin and raised Bosnian Muslim SS divisions, the 13th and the 21st Waffen-SS divisions, who killed Jews, Russians, Gypsies, and any other subhumans. All documented. Do you think professors will ever look that up? And where is the Jewish population out there that's loaded with liberals? What happened to you, Jews? Still voting Democrat. Still supporting the president and Democrats who support Muslims, who want to wipe the Jewish race off the planet. And you don't think insanity is in there? Insane thinking? A lot of Americans have become so insulated from reality that they imagine that America can suffer defeat without any inconvenience to themselves. That's it. They sit down and watch the news every night. Oh, isn't that terrible? Oh, that's so sad. And by the way, is anybody else fed up to death? I'm sure that I'm just too harsh. With the marches and the candle lightings and the vigils for the victims? How about getting outraged? How about saying enough is enough? I don't care if it's the black situations in the inner cities, when the president sticks up for the so-called victim with a record on his behavior for 20 years and they blame the police officer. 1968, Bobby Kennedy was shot and killed by a Muslim male. In 1972, at the Munich Olympics, athletes were kidnapped and massacred by Muslim males. In 1972, a Pan Am 747 was hijacked and eventually diverted to Cairo, where a fuse was lit on final approach. It was blown up shortly after landing by Muslim males. 1973, Pan Am 707 was destroyed in Rome, with 33 people killed when it was attacked with grenades by Muslim males. In 1979, the U.S. ambassador in Iran was taken over by, the U.S. embassy in Iran was taken over by Muslim males. During the 1980s, a number of Americans were kidnapped in Lebanon by Muslim males. In 1983, the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut was blown up by Muslim males. In 1985, the cruise ship Achille Lauro was hijacked and a 70-year-old Jewish American passenger was murdered and thrown overboard in his wheelchair by Muslim males. By the way, liberals are more concerned with us doing waterboarding. That's evil. Doesn't kill the person, but it just might save you and me. But they behead people. They take elderly people in a wheelchair and throw them overboard. But that's all right, because it's just a few. Just a few. These presidents and secretaries of state, secretaries of defense are sworn to uphold the Constitution and protect and save and keep this country safe. They don't take an oath to be kind, to send John Kerry over to France after a vicious bombing the first time and have Mr. Kerry give the president, a premier of France, a hug from America, and James Taylor singing, "You've Got a Friend." If that wasn't a classic example of where this mealy-mouthed, weak-livered Democratic Party leadership has gone. 1985, TW Flight 847 was hijacked at Athens, and a U.S. Navy diver trying to rescue passengers was murdered by Muslim males. 1988, Pan American Flight 103 was bombed by Muslim males. In 1993, the World Trade Center was bombed the first time by Muslim males. In 1998, the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were bombed by Muslim males. On 9/11/01, 4 airliners were hijacked. 2 were used as missiles to take down the World Trade Centers, and of the remaining 2, 1 crashed into the U.S. Pentagon, where, by the way, all of our military defense people are. Nice, yeah. Which could have left this country. If you destroy the Pentagon, you destroy a lot of our ability to defend ourselves, liberals. The other was diverted and crashed by the passengers. Thousands of people were killed by Muslim males. In 2002, the United States fought a war in Afghanistan against the Muslim males. 2002, reporter Daniel Pearl, Jewish, I believe, was kidnapped and beheaded by, you guessed it, it was a Muslim male, plus 2 other American journalists were beheaded. It's even the nitwits that are on TV sending their own journalists over there still soft pedal. And then, of course, we had the Boston bombing in 2013. 4 innocent people, including a child, were killed. 264 others were injured. 2 Muslim males whose family came in here and got an automatic check to live, have food, and were taken care of because we're so kind. Now, we still have a president, we still have Democrats, and we even have nitwit Republican candidates who still think we should be allowing immigrants from Syria who want to leave their country. Why are they fleeing these other Arabic countries, by the way, do you suppose? Because it's so nice? They already know, by the way, and this has been very rarely covered by the press, very few women and children. All you hand-wringing, feel-good. It is just disgusting. They're men. Most of them were men, and the first day they got here, one of them disappeared. And that's okay. Make sure you don't miss your TV programs. And make sure you take care of the party that pays you the most. Make sure if you're a minority, you got to vote Democrat because they're always going to support you. The majority doesn't matter. The country doesn't matter. ISIS is sending people out. They're taking credit for all these things. I don't know where we're going with it. And then one other thing I wanted to read here. Kenny, you've got anything you'd like to add?
Well, the only thing that I want to add is a very strange thing happened, and kind of comical, I guess, but not really comical. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I was looking at some of my pages for the programming that we do with your program and Talk of the Town, and I put them up on to YouTube.
Yeah.
And I also have a Lucky Star Productions account. All of a sudden, I started getting I got a lot of hits, and I couldn't read the writing. So you always hear the story if you see something or hear something, say something. Well, the writings that were on the page were in Arabic.
Yeah.
There's a Lucky Star production company in Syria. Or no, it was Afghanistan. I went and I had a long conversation with the authorities in the downtown here, and did some investigating and found out that there's another Lucky Star production company in Afghanistan. And when we were looking at all the likes we were getting from overseas, they were guys that were holding automatic weapons, long rifles, wearing vests. It was a scary situation for me when I saw that happening. And I feel as though I did the right thing. I went down to the police station and spent quite a bit of time down there. We did some investigating, and they passed it on to other people. But
well, that's what the citizenry, you should. That was the right thing to do.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But my good friend over here, Stevie, Stevie now teases me about something. He calls me the Taliban. It's some funny thing that he does with me. But it was unsettling, is what it was. So, when you go and you start looking at all the information that's on your pages, and as you're drilling down and you're looking at pictures of people that like your page, and they all have automatic weapons, no paved roads, standing in front of dilapidated buildings, wearing vests, very unsettling. That's not really a funny story, but I wanted to chime in with that.
But I mean, again, it's the irony of, again,
today's world.
When you have the political establishment more worried about global warming and having people upset every time we get a storm, when we've had storms for thousands and thousands of years, there are professors who say it's all BS that are on the other side, but you don't get them interviewed on 60 Minutes. No, you don't see them on. And the same thing goes for, again, what you're talking about.
Right.
They'll be more upset, and they get them all worked up over the weather, and yet we got somebody that can come now, and these drones. I mean, everybody's talking about being able to get your Christmas presents delivered by drones, and I mean, I'm not the brightest bulb in the chandelier. I don't mean that, but I got a good college education. I've done a lot of things. I've been in business. I've been a teacher. I read a lot. And can anybody, what if these drones, I mean, remember we had that scare in the post offices where they were putting, what is that?
Anthrax.
Anthrax in envelopes.
In envelopes, yes. Yes.
And then people were getting nervous. But I mean, a simple thing like them coming into the country and poisoning our water system.
Right. There's a lot of really...
We have so many minorities now. I don't give a darn if it offends. I want our country, my friends, my kids, grandkids, yours, everyone. I'm more concerned with them surviving than I am with somebody else's feelings.
I want the borders closed.
The borders should be closed.
And I'm being told that that's not a good thing.
I'm yelling again,
either.
Sorry.
But my friend here wants to opine, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well,
just keep it short because we haven't got much time.
I just want to know why Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and all the rich Arab countries are not taking these refugees.
Good question.
I don't understand why.
And why aren't they being made to? Just like they're not made. I'm sorry, I'll let you talk. But why aren't they being made to pay? That's what what people with a brain that are listening, both and a lot of Democrats, are supporting him. Of course, you won't get that on the TV, the coverage. And remember, he said, every time we're going to have people over there and protecting them, they're going to pay us. Why should we be sending our soldiers? But go ahead, Steve.
And the other thing is, too, I do not condone what happened in France or any kind of terrorist act. But, France has backed away, from the rest of the world as far as they don't belong to NATO. They don't cooperate. And it seems like, when the terrorist attack happened, they were the first ones to jump on board to say, we need help. We want you to help us.
Of course. Wow.
Well, I would like them to give us some help and pay for the upkeep and the maintenance of the cemeteries at Normandy, which we pay for.
Yep.
those soldiers that are buried there and interned there all died to free France. And it just bothers me that we have to pay, for the upkeep of the cemeteries over there.
Well, that's a point, Steve, but I hope you agree. I want to face the biggest threat, and it's the Middle East, period. It's not just Syria. It's the rest of them. And they will send people. And to think that we go in with Desert Storm, and we go in, and George Bush Sr. forgives the debt, never mind being paid. He didn't even make the Saudi family pay for the money that you and me, all of us taxpayers did, or did he make them send oil here?
That's right.
That's George Bush Sr.
That's right. And
so it isn't just Democrats.
No, ISIS and the rest of the terrorists have no respect for the United States because President Obama is a wuss.
Well, they think he's one of them.
He's a
and
wuss,
I think he
and
might
he
be.
doesn't.
No, they think he's one of them. He's soft on them, Steve.
Yep. Well, that's about all I want to say,
right.
Don, and thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, and it's awfully good to see you. Kenny, I don't know if you heard me say this on the radio, but Thanksgiving has gone by, but I don't know if those of you that would be listening to my show on Saturday, those that missed it, I'm Irish, and this was something that I found extremely interesting, and I researched this, and it's true. It's entitled, wait a minute. It's entitled, How the Irish Saved Thanksgiving. And there's a painting by J.L.G. Ferris, The First Thanksgiving. It shows a beautiful painting. It shows a band of starving pilgrims at Plymouth Rock was saved at the last minute by the arrival of a ship from Dublin. This is in the Library of Congress, the first Thanksgiving this painting is hung. And it was actually celebrated February 21st, 1621, when a band of starving pilgrims at Plymouth Rock was saved at the last minute by the arrival of a ship from Dublin bearing food from Ireland. The Boston Post, the largest circulation newspaper in the 1920s and 30s, discovered the earlier date for the Thanksgiving ritual, and it showed that the traditional date of the autumn of 1621 was actually incorrect. According to the, quote, observant citizen, a columnist for the Boston Post, the pilgrims in the winter of their first year were starving and faced the end of their project to colonize the New World when, quote, a ship arrived from overseas bearing the much-needed foods, close quote. Because of anti-Irish prejudice at the time, the, quote, observant citizen, close quote, the reporter neglected to name it as an Irish ship, but it was actually the Lion, and its provenance and that of the food was from Dublin, Ireland. Turns out from records at the Massachusetts Historical Society that the wife of one of the prominent Plymouth Rock brethren was the daughter of a Dublin merchant, and it was he who chartered the vessel, loaded it with food, dispatched it to Plymouth, and saved the colony. Whoever that reporter was never admitted the Irish connection, even though a number of Irish organizations challenged him on the issue. Nonetheless, the Massachusetts historical records reveal the tale as being true, giving the Irish a fair claim to saving Thanksgiving. Now, where are the liberals about supporting the Irish? They support any time anything comes up about the Indians or the black culture, but no. Something that's integral to the saving of Plymouth, that's not politically correct. Now, did you say we have someone?
Say hello to Jeff.
Hello, Don. How are you?
Hello there. Merry Christmas. Sorry if that's politically incorrect. It's going to be what I say.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry about that, Don. I'm not one of those college students.
Okay.
But, I just wanted to make a quick point. I know I don't have much time here, but,
No.
In talking about ISIS and the Middle East, I think we do have to recognize that the United States government has, unfortunately, it's disturbing for me, over the last, I would say, 2 decades, we've engaged in particular military inventions in the Middle East that have unfortunately led to the perpetuation of the radicalization of a lot of the terrorists who are now sort of attacking us and attacking Europe. For example, in the Syrian civil war, we backed a lot of the dissidents, a lot of the Syrian dissidents who went on to join ISIS. Many of the ISIS rebels who started in 2014 were coming from Syria, and they were using weapons that the United States and Saudi Arabia had given them during the Syrian civil war conflict. Also in Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen are a radical Islam group that has taken over much of Yemen, and Saudi Arabia has been bombing Yemen with our support, with our sort of candid support. But at the same time, the Houthis help us fight ISIS in Iraq. So we've been telling Saudi Arabia to lay off bombing Yemen for a little bit because the Houthis, despite being a radical Muslim group, fight ISIS and other sects of radical Muslims in Iraq. So we're sort of playing both sides of the fence, and what's disturbing to me is that we tend to not recognize that there's going to be a blowback in the future. We arm rebels, some of whom are radical. We have been doing this since at least 1979 when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and we armed the Mujahideen and trained them. The Mujahideen were a radical Islamic group funded by none other than Osama bin Laden. And so over time, these things come back to haunt us and bite us in the bum, and we don't seem to recognize that we're making the same mistakes by continuing to arm rebels who, in the future, will become radicalized against us. So I think any sort of foreign policy, considerations that we have to make have to be recognizing of the fact that we've unfortunately played a part in the destruction of the Middle East and the creation of particular power vacuums in the Middle East, such as after Saddam Hussein was arrested and killed. That allows now another radical group to take over. There's a power vacuum. It's very easy for them to take over large tracts of territory and so on. And unfortunately, many of them are able to use United States military, United States weapons against the very people who in the first place supported them or helped them get rid of a dictator or something like that. So I think really it's just a mess. It's just a mess of a situation. And I think, it's just, I don't know if there's a right answer or whether there's anything we can do in the future, but I think we really do have to keep in mind the fact that our own government has played a part in the creation of these radical groups.
I do not deny, and believe me, I enjoy your calls because you are right on in so many ways. But the thing, and I'd like to hope that you'd agree, what I have seen, however, is this, when it turns into an anti-American feeling in our own country, that's when I fight back, because I think you have to look at intent. And those things I read dating from 782 AD, those were all aggressions by the Muslim race, by the Muslims themselves, all the way up. Now, if revenge is the reason that they've done some of these horrible things to our journalists, who are, you must admit, the journalists aren't there as military people trying to hurt anyone or kill anyone,
sure,
and
absolutely.
To be beheaded, I can't accept that particular group, no matter how they may justify their movements, when they take it to that extreme, or when we have, there's crooked people, and there have been in the State Department. I mean, there's ongoing stories about things in our own country having been tied to Middle East money from that Americans were benefiting from, arms, for instance, Mm-hmm. So you are absolutely right there. But again, I think my biggest problem, and I hope you agree, is when it starts permeating the attitudes of our college students and others toward their own country. No one says we're perfect, no one says we're not flawed, no one says of any merit that we've not done wrong things, but my God, I still think we're the saviors of this world in terms of keeping what we have. So thanks so much, though, for calling.
No problem. Thanks, Donna.
A wonderful.
So I'll be watching soon.
Okay, a wonderful commentary. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are watching. I get fired up because I'm passionately afraid for this country now. I never was. And it comes from what I see as a cancer inside this country, coming from, of all places, our seats of education where too many are now, talking bad about their own country. God bless. Have a wonderful weekend. Hope I'll see some of you at the Meeting House Package and Food Store in Sandwich off of 130. Again, take care of yourself. Merry Christmas.